Good evening, my friends. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications so I can be with you forever. I'm going to be putting in my email address in the description, so if you want some production lessons or spiritual guidance or, fitness advice, anything of that nature, make sure to hit me up on my email. I generally charge $40 an hour for any sort of session that you want, but I'm pretty flexible in terms of different options that you may want. So feel free to do that. I've had several people do that already and they've gotten a lot out of it. So I definitely recommend that for anybody watching this. So I already did this video. You might have tuned in earlier, but the audio was missing. So unfortunately, I have to redo this video again. So I'm going to try to cover all the topics that I did before without forgetting everything. So I always do these ad-libbed. I don't have notes. I rarely have notes, actually. Sometimes I do for specific things, but generally it's always ad-libbed. It's always on the fly. So whatever pops into my mind relative to the subject is always going to be talked about. So since I made the error of not having audio, maybe it's for a specific reason. But today I'm going to be talking specifically about competition. And there's an issue with competition nowadays, especially as we're entering a new sort of phase in the world. And there is this tendency to look down upon competition and see competition as this toxic, egotistical trait that people have within themselves, which I think needs to be looked into more. And I think needs to be understood on a different level, on a deeper level. And just hating these things or saying these things are bad or things that these things should be avoided is sort of deviant from where we should be going in our lives and how we should be improving. So I'm going to be talking about competition in the sense of improving upon yourself, utilizing aspects of external presences in your life. That's what competition is. When we are born into this life, life is not supposed to be easy. Life is not supposed to be a one-track state of existence where you're born into a certain state and you live like that for the rest of your life. Obviously, that's not how it is. You are going to be confronted with many, many obstacles and you're going to have to overcome them. That's competition. Competition is a sense of having to fight with another person or an entity or an idea in order to uplift yourself and win, so to speak. Now, the reason why competition gets such a bad rap is the aspect of toxic competition. Competition in the sense of not bettering yourself or moving forward or improving, but in the sense of putting other people down to create the illusion of improving yourself, to create the illusion that you are superior. And this needs to be recognized because this happens, especially toxic competition, amongst high profile people once they have attained a sense of level of perfection and they don't feel like improving anymore. They don't feel like staying on the top and continuously moving forward. Their goal is to maintain that position. And if someone's showing up or an idea is showing up in their life that is trying to overcome them, they're going to try to push it down and try to eliminate it and try to eradicate it from their existence, basically. That can come through very violent means. That can come through killing people. It can come through torturing people. It can come through all kinds of different means. And that's utilizing the power that you have already manifested into yourself to get to the level that you are at. That is the toxic side of competition, which is the reason why a lot of people are leaning towards things like community and cooperation and socialism and communism and all this other crap. And we need to recognize that those concepts of community, those concepts of cooperation, those are not the opposites of competition. They are not these forms that are separated from competition. The reason why people cooperate and the reason why people create communities is specifically for competition. And that's sort of what the beauty of it all is that When we are in a competitive mindset, we are in the goal of embedding ourselves or reaching a final destination point of success, right? And this can come from just ourselves, it can come from a communal standpoint, or it can come from you and another person or multiple people. So if you want to look at cooperation and community, take a look at competitive sports like soccer or basketball or football. Those are all very cooperative environments, but they're for a competitive purpose. And it's shown through that in a very like material, physical way where we can actually see the competition. There's a winner at the end of every game, right? It's different when we're getting into the real world, so to speak, when we're getting into things like political ideologies and just things of that nature, or even just communities trying to battle starvation or famine or lack of shelter, right? They're going to cooperate with each other to farm and create resources for themselves so they can combat external forces that are going to harm them. That's competition. So this is why when you look at political systems like communism and other forms of communal systems, they don't work because a lot of their ideology is based around the idea that competition is evil, competition is toxic. There shouldn't be competition. Let's eradicate competition as this demonized entity that is, destroying people around the world. When you try to eliminate these things, because don't forget, competition is a part of life. That's how we improve upon ourselves. When we want to up-level ourselves and become the best person that we need to be, there needs to be a counterforce pushing us back so we can move beyond that. We can rise above it and then become the better part of ourselves. When we try to say that that is evil and we shouldn't utilize that to our benefit, and we try to cast it away and eradicate it, guess what? That competitive spirit doesn't go away. It's still there, but this time it wins. The competition will win. That's why you will always find in these communist societies there will be a dictator who is the winner, who is controlling everything, because now everyone is geared together in a communal sense to think that they don't have to compete anymore. But guess what? Competition exists. But since they're in denial of that fact, they remain in a impoverished lifestyle. They generally are constantly having to work on a bottom level environment where you have the competitor, the leader of them all, eating up all of the benefits that they are neglecting themselves of, because they have fallen into an ideological trap of believing that competition doesn't exist or shouldn't exist. So that's the basis of what I'm trying to get at, is competition can be a very beautiful thing if it's not done in the way that's creating the illusory mentality of pushing other people down to make yourself look big, right? When you get into that mindset, it's kind of like if you're in a boxing match and it's a fixed fight and you have someone go down in like the third round because there's some gambling things going around, and that's not a real fight, that's not a real competition, that's creating the illusion of the competition. The person who won that fight didn't actually won in a real way. It created that illusion, and that exists. And with a lot of people, they like to create that illusion of winning because they care more about the illusion, they care more about the idea of winning rather than the actual internal development and success that comes from within. That's the whole point of constructive competition, is when you're actually embedding yourself in a certain way. So let's take a look at in general, just in businesses, right? You have competition amongst other businesses trying to create the best product at the cheapest price. That's basically the foundation of what it is. When you're doing it in a sense that you are trying to create the best product or the best service because you want to be internal as a company to uplift yourself and to be the best company that there is, that's when you have a positive mindset of a positive system of economics. When you have a system of companies and businesses that do not care about creating a substantially superior product. All they care about is crushing the competition, eliminating competition. See, that's where the theme comes in again. This is where you get hardcore corporations and hardcore businesses that do not want competition, right? That's where the cutthroat competition comes in, because it's not really competition. It's just the illusion that they are the winners, that they are the superior company. But in reality, all they're doing is eliminating competition in order to achieve a sense of grandeur. But really, all they're doing is bringing everybody down, including themselves, including their potential to be a good company. So that's what this toxic competition is. And I would change that term, because it really isn't even competition at all. It's the complete opposite of it. It's the elimination. It's the lack of competition. It's the lack of real life, of living. So, and I'm going to get into another aspect of this as well. There is this notion of need to sort of, look at different forms of competition as being superior than others. There's this notion that's like, okay, if you're competing against other people, it's not as good as if you were just competing with yourself, right? First of all, within any competition, you're always competing with yourself, because you're trying to be the best you can be in order to attain happiness, right? If you're just focused on other people, then you don't have a sense of self. You have no sense of identity. You don't exist, basically. So that in general is kind of foggy in terms of an understanding. And when you are identified with yourself, competing with other people is perfectly fine. In fact, it's a beautiful process. It's wonderful to compete with other people when you're doing it in a healthy way, because when you have someone who is competing and they're attaining a certain level of success, you can look at it as a sense of reality, right? You're not looking at this sense of achievement as this, oh, I can't do this. It happened. It's a reality. This happened. Just that it happened to another person. So when you see someone else do that, now you can say to yourself, if he can do it or she could do it, then so can I. And that creates an embetterment of yourself, because now you can see the reality in the real world. It's not just an imagination thing. It's real. It happened, except it happened to someone else. So now you have to catch up, and then you can surpass them and create the new reality. And then they see that and they say, wow, I can even go even further than that. I can rise myself up even further, right? So it's a never-ending process. That's the great thing about competition, is that when you are competitive with another person, both of you are setting up boundaries of reality that you can surpass. When you see the reality shift in the material world, then you can actually uplift yourself, and it's easier to do. That's why we always see every year for races in the Olympics, records are always consistently being broken over and over again, because the shifts of reality keep augmenting. We keep augmenting and progressing as a society, right? Progress on a societal level is competition. We are competing against the past of history. We look back at history and of civilization in the past, and we see how the world was functioning. And then we look at the present world and see, have we progressed? Are we better as a society? Are we more enlightened? And if yes, then we are beating the past. We are competing against the past. We are winning in a sort of sense. So that's another aspect of competition. When we're focusing solely on the self, competing against the self, usually that means you are competing either with your past self, your past accomplishments, but you're also competing against your ego. Now, what the ego wants to do is to survive, right? And that's what the ego is competing against. It's competing against survival, competing against famine. When the ego is comfortable, and then you get into a state of excess, right? When you start eating too much, you start watching too much porn, when you start not doing anything productive because you're in a very comfortable lifestyle, right? You have a very comfortable job. You live in a meager apartment that's perfectly adequate, but that's an aspect that you have to compete against in order to get to the next level. in order to say, no, I'm not going to eat all this food. I'm going to restrict myself so I can be in the best shape I can be. I'm not going to continuously watch porn because I don't need to just excrement my seed all the time, and I'm going to preserve my energy. I'm not going to stay in this job. I'm going to get a better job or build a business. I'm going to uplift myself. If you're a monk, for instance, you are constantly in a competition against your ego, right? If you're a spiritual person, your ego is going to be something that's going to keep you down. It's going to keep you in a feeling of depression. When you're trying to ascend and uplift yourself into a higher realm, your ego is going to be pushing you back. And that's a good thing because it's going to give you that tension, that drive, that need to get to the next step. Then you can use that ego as a stepping stone in a way. And that's what competition is. It's a stepping stone for yourself to uplift yourself to a higher level. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about that. I think I covered all the topics I did that I missed in the previous video. So thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and send me an email if you want some production lessons or just anything in general. I'm pretty open to what people may want from me. Obviously I don't do it for free. My time is valuable. So, hit me up when you can, and have a wonderful night.